You opened your banking app last Tuesday, not because you were worried, just to check, and then you saw it. A charge you had completely forgotten about. $12. Recurring. Every single month for the last 11 months. You did not remember signing up. You definitely do not use it. But there it was. Quiet, invisible, pulling money out of your account while you were busy thinking about other things. The strange part is not that you forgot. The strange part is that the company was counting on it. This is the subscription trap, and it was not built by accident. In 2022, a study by C+R Research found that the average American underestimates their monthly subscription spending by a factor of nearly 2. When asked to guess, people estimated around $86 per month. The real number was closer to $219. That gap, that invisible $130, is not a mistake made by confused consumers. It is the designed outcome of a system built specifically to stay out of your awareness. But to understand why canceling feels harder than it should, you have to go back further. Back to a psychology experiment that almost nobody outside of academia talks about, even though it explains something you experience almost every week. In the 1990s, a behavioral economist named Richard Thaler ran a series of experiments on something he called the endowment effect. The idea was simple. Once you own something, it becomes more valuable to you than it was the moment before you owned it. Not because the thing changed, because your relationship to it changed. Your brain now treats it as part of what is yours. And losing what is yours feels worse than gaining something new feels good. Thaler gave participants coffee mugs. Then he asked them how much they would sell the mug for. Then he asked a separate group of participants how much they would pay to buy the same mug. The sellers wanted roughly twice as much as the buyers were willing to pay. Same mug, same room, same university. Completely different values, produced entirely by the simple fact of ownership. You do not need to own a mug for this to apply to you. You pay for a streaming service every month. You might not have watched it in 6 weeks, but somewhere in the back of your mind, you feel like that service is yours. The library of films is yours. The option to watch it whenever you feel like it is yours. And your brain treats the potential loss of that access as significantly more painful than the $12 or $15 you are actually losing every 30 days. This is why the cancel button is always harder to press than the subscribe button was. And the companies know this. They have studied this. They have built entire product teams around this. There is a term used inside software companies. It is called friction. Friction is any small obstacle, any tiny delay, any extra step placed between a user and a decision the company does not want them to make. Subscribing is designed to be frictionless. One tap, card saved, done. Canceling is designed to be the opposite. Multiple pages, confirmation steps, offers, pop-ups, surveys asking why you are leaving. A final screen with a large friendly button saying pause instead of cancel placed directly above the smaller, harder to see cancel link underneath. This is not a user interface accident. This is a system called dark patterns. And it was documented extensively by researcher Harry Brignall, who began cataloging these intentional design choices in 2010. Brignall identified dozens of specific manipulation techniques used inside digital products. The Roach Motel was one of them. Easy to get in, very hard to get out. Netflix, Amazon, Spotify, gym memberships, meal kit deliveries, news sites, productivity apps, cloud storage tools. Every single one of them applies some version of this thinking. But here is where the psychology gets stranger. Because the subscription trap does not just rely on friction and the endowment effect. It also exploits something deeper, something much older than technology. Your brain has a built-in bias toward inaction. Psychologists call it status quo bias. The default option, the thing that happens if you do nothing, feels safe. It feels like zero risk. Canceling a subscription requires you to take an action, and every action feels like it carries some possibility of regret. What if you cancel and then you need it? What if you decide later you want it back and the price has gone up? What if the moment you cancel is exactly the moment you would have used it? Your brain runs these simulations automatically. You are not consciously thinking this through. It happens in the background, in less than a second, And the result is the same every time. You close the app and you tell yourself you will cancel next month. Next month never comes, because next month you run the same simulation. The subscription economy was built entirely around this loop. The model itself is relatively recent. For most of the 20th century, you bought things once. You paid, you owned, you moved on. The shift began quietly in the software industry in the early 2000s, when companies realized that selling software once was far less profitable than charging a small monthly fee forever. Adobe was one of the first major companies to make this transition at scale. In 2013, they moved their flagship creative tools from a one-time purchase model to a monthly subscription. Revenue initially dropped. Customers were furious. But within 3 years, their recurring revenue had grown by hundreds of millions of dollars annually. The model worked. Not because customers were getting more value, because customers were no longer making active decisions to keep paying. The payment happened automatically, in the background, until someone made the conscious and effortful decision to stop it. Every other industry watched, and then every other industry followed. Today, you can subscribe to razor blades, dog food, socks, wine, vitamins, skincare, car washes, parking spots, fonts, recipe cards, and premium features on apps that used to be completely free. The average American adult now has between 12 and 15 active subscriptions at any one time. Most could name 6 or 7. The remaining 6 to 9 are invisible. And here is the part that almost nobody talks about. The business model depends on that invisibility. Not the visibility of the service, the invisibility of the cost. There is a cognitive phenomenon called the pain of paying, first described by Drazen Prelek and Duncan Semester at MIT in the early 2000s. When you pay for something in cash, your brain registers a mild negative emotional signal at the moment of transaction. You feel the money leaving. That tiny pain is what makes you think, even briefly, about whether the purchase is worth it. Credit cards reduce that pain. Digital payments reduce it further, and automatic recurring charges reduce it to almost nothing. You never experience the moment of paying for your subscriptions. The money leaves silently, the same day every month, among dozens of other small transactions, in a number buried inside your banking app that you open just to check and then close again. Your brain never registered the cost, so your brain never asked the question. This is not an accident. Payment designers have studied the pain of paying. They know that removing friction from payment increases spending. They know that automatic billing creates a psychological category that feels different from active spending. You are not spending money on Netflix every month. You just have Netflix. The cost is invisible. The service feels free. So what do you actually do about it? The answer is not willpower. Willpower is a finite resource that you deplete every day. And subscription companies have infinite patience and a team of behavioral scientists. The answer is changing the architecture of the system itself. Behavioral researchers like B.J. Fogg at Stanford have shown that the most effective way to break a habit loop is not motivation, but design. Change the environment so the default outcome changes. In the context of subscriptions, this means one thing: make the cost visible again. Print your subscriptions on paper, actual physical paper, or write them in a note. The total number, the total monthly cost, the last time you actively used each one. Something about the physical act of confrontation, of seeing the full number in one place, triggers a different kind of attention than an app buried on your phone. Then introduce your own friction. Before you subscribe to anything new, add a 30-second rule. 30 seconds of visible cost. Write down what it costs per year, not per month. $12 a month is easy to dismiss. $144 a year sounds like a different decision. And notice the next time you try to cancel something, notice the steps. Count the clicks, look for the friction. Because the moment you can name the pattern, it loses some of its grip. The mug in Thaler's experiment only felt valuable until the participant understood why. You checked your banking app last Tuesday, you saw a charge you had forgotten about, and now you know that forgetting was not a failure of your memory. It was the product of a system designed at every level to stay invisible. the payment hidden in the background, the cancel button buried under offers, the ownership feeling wired directly into your brain's loss aversion, the status quo made comfortable and automatic, so that doing nothing always felt easier than deciding. The subscription trap is not $12 a month. It is the assumption that inaction is free. It never was.